Planned Parenthood kills about 1,000 children every single day in our country. There's about 3,000 children who die every single day in our communities.
We need to stop being middle-class American sissies, and we need to be willing to fight faithfully with the gospel.
But the wicked have a bloodlust, and they will lie to see it happen. These people don't care about women's right to choose. They don't care about standing up for women's rights. They don't care about fighting for your right to health care. They don't care about your body, your choice. They want blood. They want blood.
Love does, love does. We were prisoners who got away, but we cannot keep this freedom for ourselves. Running back now into danger, making free men out of every slave.
Alright, welcome back for an exciting episode of the explosively viral Super Fascist Baby Lover Patriarchy podcast. No, just kidding. This is the Better Off Dead podcast. Across the table from me is host Dan Reed.
What up?
I'm Evan Kuzava, and we have special guests today.
Right.
Dan, who are you sitting next to?
I'm sitting next to my wife, Lindsay.
Woo!
Hello.
And I have my bride over here. This is Missy.
Hello.
Okay.
These are the BOD Pod wives.
The BOD Pod Wives. Better Off Dead podcast shortened. The nickname is the BOD Pod. We're going to come up with some funny merch that goes with it, I'm sure. But first, what's it like to be married to a fundy, baby-loving psycho?
Whoa. We'll just start right off with that kind of a question.
No, we have a big day today because outside of where we are today, a lot of our comrades in arms are fighting this fight, especially in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, today, they are rallying at their state capitol because today is Abolition Day.
All right.
Right.
So I would like to start off by saying, have any of you attended an Abolition Day rally in Oklahoma City?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
You are crazy. Well,
yes, it felt crazy.
So we've got lots to cover interviewing the BOD Pod Wives today. We've got questions about your firsthand experience serving your king and loving your neighbors out at the abortion mills and in your homes and in your marriages. But we also, maybe we'll just jump in because it's Abolition Day and because our friends at Free the States and many other organizations are out today in the cold, braving the cold and proclaiming the truth. Let's wind the clock back 3 years. The first time that I ever heard about Abolition Day, I said, honey, you want to drive 12 hours with our brand new baby across the country to go meet some of our Christian heroes in person? Because Apologia Radio invited us and said, we need lots of boots on the ground at this event. We need to make a big stink. We need to really let people know we're demanding abolition. Do you want to go?
On my birthday.
Yes. So would you describe some of the adventure, some of your experience emotionally, because we had not been deeply entrenched in the fight to end abortion at all. We were very new to it, but we were very eager to learn and eager to grow. And we also we thought it'd be pretty wild to go on a road trip and spend some time together without all the babies, just time to talk, and then meet some of our heroes like the pastors at Apologia.
Yeah. It was a really great experience. It was probably my first time around any of the people involved in the fight. We had watched it on YouTube several times and always talked about, oh, what if we could be a part of that? And so I kind of expected to be a part of it in my city versus having to drive 12 hours. But it was worth it. We took our 9-month-old baby, whose name was Wilberforce, and we were very proud to introduce him to some of the key figures there because they influenced his name and that sort of thing. The event It was very cold. It was very, very cold. And it was also a month before the pandemic, so it was a bit weird, just, you know, people saying, oh, you're going to Oklahoma? Should you even be traveling? And we're like, it's not gonna be a big deal. This is just nothing.
There were some people with masks, some without, trying to figure out how to navigate all that was a little crazy.
Yeah, I think it was helpful that we had family in Oklahoma City, so we stayed with family and coaxed them to come to the rally with us, and they had no involvement at the time, and so that was fun to have them come with us. I'm trying to remember some of the events that happened at the rally. There were speakers, and that was really great to be able to see the speakers that we had, you know, been watching and see them in person. I'm trying to remember, there wasn't a whole lot of opposition. There was a little bit, but not like crazy mobs or anything like that. So I felt safe the whole time. That was one of my fears, is sometimes you see on the videos that it's, you know, can get a bit crazy. And so I was worried about that happening with the new baby, but I felt safe the whole time. I was proud to be a part of it. I felt like I was with other believers, and that what we were doing mattered. I think my favorite part of it was at the end of the rally, they wanted us to go inside of the Capitol and try to talk to anyone we could see. Any representatives, any lobbyists, any secretaries, you know, just anyone we could see, to go in and talk with them. And it was really neat to hear other families singing hymns inside the Capitol, you know, chanting different phrases inside the Capitol. So I think that was my favorite part of it, was at the end.
It felt like there was a rally. It felt like there was a lot of people assembled to do something big, and it was really exciting. And that was 3 years ago. And just this morning, we got word that the second proposed abolition bill in our state of Colorado will be heard in the coming weeks, like real soon. So
Next week.
We've been lightning texting everybody, trying to get more info and trying to get that figured out, but we're really excited about that. And we want to go rally the troops again. And you guys are very faithful to bring your family into the fight. What on earth are you doing?
It's a good question, honey. What?
It's all you.
You haven't always been an abolitionist. So what brought you to this crazy fundamentalist abolitionist position that you have now, and bringing your kids out there?
Well, I don't know. It's all you. I remember we had a year in Oregon where Dan was a farmer, and it was really neat because God used that time where he could listen to a lot of podcasts and sermons. So he heard about abolition of abortion and just got really excited about it and learned a lot about it. And then I remember he was like talking to us in the car about it, and this was a couple years ago, so the kids were littler, and I was like, honey, like they don't know, like, you know, they don't know these things. And so I think he just said it's okay, they can handle it or something. And so he told the kids what abortion is. And he was right that they could handle it, and they could care about it and not be overly sensitive about it, but have a right reaction to it. And so that was the first time I heard about anybody standing against abortion. But I still thought it was crazy and dangerous.
Yeah.
And then when we moved back to Colorado, we had some friends at church some women and children who would go and pray at abortion mills. So I thought I would just try that, and then we ended up all going together.
Yeah. And I remember I asked Jeff Durbin, when we started going out to the mill, I asked him if he brought his kids. You know, what does that look like? Do you bring your kids to the mill? And he said they do bring their kids, and it's dangerous, but it's great for them to be out there, to be witnessing, to seeing the wickedness coming back at them. And so that just further strengthened my conviction, like my kids need to be out there too.
Yeah.
They need to be witnessing. And it's amazing because our daughter, Kennedy, will call out to the ladies going in there. and tell them to come talk to her and preach the gospel to them. Like, it's
Because you force her to, right?
Yeah.
Like you have some kind of
Exactly.
fundamentalist indoctrination
Yeah.
at home,
Yeah.
training your kids, drills of how to impose your beliefs and cram it down the throats of unsuspecting victims.
right, and she knows what will happen if she doesn't do that when we get back home. So
No.
just kidding.
You mean she wants to?
Yeah.
She
And
wants
she
to.
tells people
she
that.
loves being out there doing that. Like, she wants to do that.
I forgot that we had watched videos of Jeff Durbin with his kids and other families with kids, and how much that gave me the courage. I was still scared to go and scared to bring the kids, but that gave me the courage, and I kind of forgot that that's one of the reasons we like to share our family going out on the internet. But what has fought the fears and anxiety is just going out there and seeing God be victorious over all of the foolishness and evil, and there's no threat there that can touch us apart from what God ordains and allows.
Yeah.
So he just has conquered those fears.
That's awesome. Similarly, when we were driving back from Oklahoma, we listened to an audiobook from, at the time she went by Activist Mommy, but her name's Elizabeth Johnston, and her 10 kids would go with her out to the abortion clinic to minister. I think they're on the East Coast or in the South, and they have a mom who got real fired up because of some craziness that was going on in their local Target selling pro-perversion material to kids. So they had like a boycott of their local store that was indoctrinating the kids with perversion, and they had a school sit out because they found out that every time that there's not a seat in class, if there's tardies, the school gets less money from the government. And so they said, let's organize a sit out and fight back and say, if you're going to teach our kids this nonsense that's anti-God, and you're going to pervert their minds away from the truth, we need to do something. And they just realized, let's hit them where it counts, in the wallet,
That's good.
So we listened to Elizabeth Johnston's book on that drive, and she has some specific chapters dedicated to describing how do we get involved in the fight against abortion, and what do we do with our families. And I think that was a huge catalyst for us, because we too had seen what Apologia is doing, testifying at their local capitals, and Apologia is posting videos of children testifying at the Capitol. So, just a year ago, our church had a number of children show up and have prepared testimonies, and some of them had to wait like 13 hours for their turn, and stay up really late into the night.
Yeah.
But we enjoyed listening to that book because it was almost like a first-hand experience from a mom.
Yeah, I think she's the first mom that I had watched who was like that, who was a mama bear type of mom, and her example was really, really helpful.
Because you grew up really angsty and angry and always looking to pick a fight and throw fisticuffs, right?
No.
What was, you had a nickname in school because you were so
I had to
feminine.
bring that up.
My wife was so feminine, which was how I was first, how I noticed her, was because she was distinctly feminine in a world where the meshing of those distinctives is very commonplace. And so I actually appreciated that my wife was feminine. But your nickname?
Sissy Missy. So now the whole world knows.
But she's a mama bear now, and the Lord has grown her into all kinds of stuff. And so that's the one thing I want to talk about as we have the wives here. What do you think the value is in getting involved in politics and going and doing this activism? I totally understand if women want to go and have a march for women's rights or for March for Life. It makes sense that it's a party. Everybody just gets their craft time and makes a sign and then wears their pink hat or whatever they want to wear, and they just go and have a party day and rah, we did a big thing. That makes sense to have a holiday. But what do you think the significance of it? And I don't support the March for Women's Rights to kill their babies. No. What do you think the significance is as homemakers of the role you play in spending hours and hours with your children, discipling them and following your husband's lead to make disciples of Jesus within this particular context? Because going to a place where they kill people, where there's police and where there's armed guards, and where we just recently found there's the communists of our city want to come and interrupt our march to protect babies. How does that tie into your day-to-day? Because this seems like such a departure from what you spend day in and day out doing. But the more I think about it, what you're doing prepares your children for this work too. So it doesn't seem super far-fetched if you just read your Bible.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I think it's biblical because the Bible does talk about Christians needing the armor of God. And the only reason you need armor is if you're going to war. And yes, there's spiritual warfare all the time in the home and outside of the home. But there's cultural war happening too. And I grew up not even realizing that was happening, you know. And it wasn't until a couple years ago, after a sermon that our pastor talked about of, you know, Mary giving a war cry song, I turned to Evan and I was like, we're at war. I didn't realize I was in a war. And I feel behind because I didn't even know I was in a war. So I think showing the children we are in a war every day and you can't just hide from it. You can't think that, well, Douglas Wilson says a Pollyanna view of the world, and that's totally what I grew up with, is the world is so sweet and beautiful and perfect and it's not that way. And so I think to be a Christian who's honoring the Lord is to also be a Christian who's fighting and teaching our children to fight.
That's good.
I think we can see in Genesis that God gave our husbands a helper on purpose to do their job and maybe accomplish more or have more encouragement, somebody behind them. So I would say that's one reason. And then another reason that I want to support whatever ministry he wants to do is whatever is not accomplished in our lifetime, maybe will be accomplished in our kids' lifetime. So let's say that our sons grow up and want to run for state legislature, or they want to go out to abortion mills. Well, they're going to feel like they're crazy, they're going to feel scared, or their wives are going to feel scared, they're going to face opposition. But that opposition is going to be so much louder if they didn't see their dad growing up doing that. So like if Dan were to run for state legislature and lose, which he says he's not going to do, but I'm just saying in the long run that has generational positive impact, because when our sons want to follow in his footsteps, whatever those may be, they're going to probably go further and be more successful just because they're not going to be bogged down by all the fears that we're battling now. So it'll be pushing them further along.
It won't feel as unfamiliar.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fun. Now we spend time as families supping together. We have food and we have time together where we encourage one another. Oftentimes, because this is a project that Dan and I are working on, we're trying to make plans of what's next. How do we advance the cause further? Because there's still babies being murdered. There's still people driving their girlfriends and their spouses and going to actively terminate people. And so this is an ongoing thing, but our families are united in unity, wanting to work together and sharpen one another. And so one thing I'd contribute in this is you have a couple options in this world. Your option is pursue a self-centered American dream of, I want to get stuff, I want to work really hard so I can get a lot of shiny things that have a status symbol to them so I can be respected by my fellow man and be somebody. And then with my leisure time that I earn from all my hard work, then I take my family to Disneyland. And my family's gone to Disneyland. But the reality is, in this cultural war that we're in, we have a mandate from our general, from our king, to advance his kingdom and his fame, and destroy the works of darkness, expose the deeds of evil that are being done. There's clear commands in our Bibles that we're all ignoring if we aren't involved in trying to expose evil in our world. And so Christians have been sold this niceness that our pastor Carlson shared on our previous episode. And what a blessing it was to have Pastor Aaron come on the podcast and share the perspective of a pastor. Yeah. But being engaged in a war, the enemy absolutely wants to pacify us with entertainment. And so the fight that we're in is how do we engage in some recreation to the glory of God? How do we enjoy this world, enjoy good food, enjoy fellowship with friends, but not teach our kids to just be consumers. Not teach our kids to only entertain themselves endlessly with these black mirrors, these screens that are black holes, you know, they can lead to all kinds of craziness. How do we, as parents, disciple our children with a worldview that says there's limited time, your life is a vapor, like the Bible says, and we have a king to serve, and he didn't tell us, just serve me on Sundays. He didn't tell us, just serve me at the Bible study or during your morning devotions. He said, in all that you do, you can glorify the Lord. And so I recognize the strength of this. You know, we're kind of the black sheep because we're homeschoolers, and homeschoolers are socially awkward, and there's all these cliches around it, right, that we got to deal with. But you know what we're doing? I want to encourage you guys. We are in a fight day in and day out with our children to disciple them to be soldiers of King Jesus. And so be encouraged, mamas. And we wanted to do this episode specifically to empower and encourage other moms and homemakers out there who may say, what can I bring to the table if I know that these babies are precious because I nurse them and incubate them and keep them alive every day and change all these diapers, but what can I do? What you can do is you can train up those children to serve King Jesus. And the other side says, oh, you're teaching your kids propaganda. And it's like, no, we're teaching them the truth, but that does involve an amount of disciplined investing to shape their perspective of the world. And at all times, they're being given crooked views on everything.
And you were talking about the fear of it, and I think this can apply to a lot of different areas within the home, but especially in this one, it's like, even if we feel afraid, if we are following our husband's leadership, then I know that I'm in the safest place possible because I'm obeying the Lord. And if the Lord tells me to follow his leadership, then the Lord's gonna keep me safe or take care of me or take care of us, you know? And so it's like, I'm always in the safest spot when I'm following his lead. And if this is what he says that we should do, then I should do it.
That's good. Which leads to another question. Has anything happened out at the mill? Like when we started going out to the mill, in your mind probably raced like, oh, what could happen? This could happen, this could happen. Has God allowed anything to happen out there that you thought this is going to be really scary if this happens, but then it happened and God showed you it wasn't really as scary as you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, I was scared of like violence or mobs, people coming up and yelling at us, the police coming, people teaching our kids new cuss words or other vile language, and all of that has happened, and all of those fears are gone because it was inconsequential. And man, it's just, there's, in the big picture, there's been nothing negative. There's been only things to gain, like just the closeness of serving together as a family, the conversations that have been brought up, you know, awkward conversations about what is rape and what do those words mean, and okay, how do we get those words out of our mind once we leave there? Just these amazing conversations that we get to disciple our kids. But if we were just sitting at home on the couch or whatever, how would those conversations come up, you know? So it's just been strengthening for us individually, as a family, just our kids growing up stronger and more Christ-like. So God has just blessed it from every angle.
And I have to brag on their daughter, because we were at that same rally with you when some things happened between Denver communists and abolitionists. And because you guys had invested in teaching your daughter how to be bold at the mill, her boldness is what helped my daughters feel less scared. And because our daughters were there and they were starting to get a little worried, and you know, we were comforting them and trying, but it was like nothing was getting through until your daughter came and was confident and bold, and that just eased their fears. And so she's being a great example for the younger generation too.
Thanks. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think that this is so exciting to have our wives on, because they are co-laborers in the fight. And so if you see me rambling on every episode and Dan interviewing people, a lot of it is because we are able to continue doing this because of the support and encouragement of our wives. We're constantly coming up with ideas and trying to engage in a lot of different ways and follow in the footsteps of those who are doing it. But, you know, we have other jobs and we have other things that we're doing, but we're constantly trying to dream up how can we be more effective for King Jesus in this fight. And when this fight is over, there's other stuff to work on. But it's so encouraging that, you know, behind a man who's in the fight is a woman, you know, helping him so much. And so it's so funny in culture. There's so much slander against the order of things that God set up. Mm-hmm. There's God as our head. God is our authority and our covering. And then we have our shepherds. We have our pastors in our church that helps us men do our job. And then we protect and lead our wives and serve them and give them love and direction. And then they pass that to the children. And obviously dads really need to be involved in that as well. But there's so much of the time that we're not there. And this trickle down is something by God's design that the world mocks and says, you're held back because you serve the patriarchy. What do you just love making pancakes?
Yeah. I can't remember if it's C.S. Lewis or if it's G.K. Chesterton, but he says, one of them says that all the other careers are to support our career. Like they're all made to be able to support the best career or the most impactful career, which is
elaborate on that.
Well, as a homemaker, as a stay-at-home mom, or you're raising up the future. You're raising up the next pastors, lawyers, doctors, the next moms, and so it matters. It really does matter what we say and do and spend our time on, for good or for negative. And so,
are you saying that John Bunyan's mom didn't go and like send him off to be educated randomly? She probably was involved in his life. Right?
Yeah. I'm sure it was very intentional.
Yeah, intentionality is a big part of your job because there's so much chaos and lack of discipline in the children, and you've got to learn to hone those skills and steer that and develop those muscles of, okay, when I feel this temptation, what do I do with it? When I feel these emotions to hit somebody or freak out, you know, you're constantly helping shape and mold future humans that you want to be responsible, righteous people. Yeah. And that's not something that is done haphazardly and unintentional. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So we're forcing you to homeschool the children?
No.
It's not your choice.
Wait, no, we're choosing to.
Wait, this is a question that we're faced with often, and we kind of chuckle about it.
Yeah.
And the question we're always faced with is like, so are you just homeschooling like from the pandemic, and then when you find the real school, you're going to go do that?
Yeah.
What's your answer to that?
No. No. I mean, I want to be open to whatever the Lord wants our family to do, but it's not a plan B. It's not a second option. It's what we've chosen to do. And
we've both been doing it since the beginning.
Yes,
It's not because of the pandemic or any other effect. And we know that I don't want to be too bold, but
go for it.
Well, we can cut this out if we want to. But for those families who God enables to homeschool, it is the best option. It's best for your kids. It's more sanctifying for mom. We have to deal with each other all day, and kids who homeschool always test better across the board than any other kind of school. So it's not an issue of not having enough money for private school, or, you know, we get those questions, and we're doing it because it's the best for the whole family, and for, I think, raising up disciples to follow the Lord. So that's my thought.
And I think it allows, like, because all our three kids learn differently. Like Sawyer learns completely different than Kennedy. And if they were not homeschooled, you wouldn't be able to figure that out and say, okay, Kennedy learns best this way, let's do this. And Sawyer learns best this way. And it also allows us to go out to the mill as a family, because we can carve that into our homeschool time. And
I was going to say that. I was thinking about that recently, that homeschool allows us the freedom to make our family's life or schedule centered around what God has put on your heart. So if sometimes our church has classes once a month at night, we can all go, and it doesn't matter if we don't get home till 9 or 9:30 and we have to sleep in the next morning, or if we want to wake up early and go to the mill and read some history in the car. All of it can be centered around whatever ministry is on your heart, whether it's waking up early or staying up late, having more time for like hospitality and fellowship with friends from church. It just allows a lot more freedom.
yeah.
And I do think that there is freedom in Christ for those families that have chosen a classical Christian school. I just think your word is key. Intentionality of intentional with knowing what's being taught, knowing the teachers, knowing what your plan is when you're at home with the kids.
Yeah.
So like we know so many good examples through Douglas Wilson of his classical school and things like that, that I do like that too. I just think that so often people think if you're homeschooling, it's just because it's the plan B.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah, and it's super easy all the time. It's just really easy. Right?
No, it's really hard.
I mean, you wake up at noon, the kids jump on the trampoline, it's easy, right?
PE. It's called PE with physics.
No, that's something huge. And so maybe we should wrap the episode in a few minutes here, no rush. But I would love to speak from your position. This is your platform today. You get the opportunity to encourage other mamas or aspiring mamas or accidental mamas. You get to speak to them from where you're at and say, we want to encourage you. And we can specifically aim that in the issue of abortion, but I think also just being disciples of the King, because abortion is just one of the things that the disciples do, because we always talk about the triage situation. What is the most grave evil that's happening? Who's most at risk right now? And we know that there's babies on the chopping block today in the state that we are in right now. So they can't speak up for themselves. They can't fight for themselves. They need our help. But if it's not that type of justice, there's other injustice, and there's things that the King's servants are commanded to get involved with. But would you speak maybe to those women who are in the fight or want to get deeper into the fight to be more obedient? And like you said, I love that you said, Lindsay, that it's a sanctifying opportunity. So often in the Disneyland culture, we want to serve what's convenient and comfortable, and we make a lot of excuses like, oh, I could never do that. And a lot of that is like assuming God can't give us strength to do hard things, So how dare we limit what God might be planning to do before we even get started on it? And so maybe you can encourage some other ladies that way.
Do it even if you're scared. Because that's the definition of courage, is doing something even when you're scared to do it. And I mean, your perfect example of your worst fear came true, and it wasn't as bad as you had made it up in your mind.
Right.
And I think that's the big thing, is we, as women, we live in our minds. So much of our life is in our minds. 90% of my life is in my mind. And so, I don't think your mind is trustworthy all the time, just like your heart's not trustworthy all the time. And so you've probably built it up in your mind to be this thing, when in reality, it's not going to be like that. Or if it is, it's sanctifying. And so if you're wanting to get in the fight, do it even if you're scared. And if you're a mom who did not expect to be pregnant, do the right thing even if you're scared.
Like my mom.
That's what I was gonna say, is it's you never know how impactful it's gonna be. I wouldn't have a husband if my mother-in-law wasn't courageous. And so I'm thankful every day that she chose to do the courageous thing, because now I have a husband and a father and a family, and so it really matters. It really does.
That's really good. I don't know what else I can say on top of that. I was thinking, if you want to get in the fight, and maybe just a couple thoughts, maybe pray that God will put that on your husband's heart first.
That's good.
That might be better to follow his lead there. That's been huge in our marriage. So I'm glad I'm not out there leading that for our family. And then if your husband is leading that, but you have fears, I would recommend you just talk to him about them. But sometimes as women, we can go to our husbands, but we already have it made up in our mind. So go to them, go to your husband, but have it in your mind that you're going to seriously take what he says and let it lead you. So you're not going to just, all right, but I'm still afraid of this. You're just going to accept that sometimes God gives our husbands wisdom that we don't have, I would say oftentimes, and so let him lead you and share all your fears, and more than likely he has answers for those and he can lead you well through that.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Better Off Dead podcast. We know babies are not better off dead. We do want to invite you to join the fight. And so, Dan, there's stuff coming down the pipeline real fast. By the time this episode gets out, we may be on our way to the state capitol. We'll try and get it out faster just for the sake of encouraging people to join us. But really, we want to invite you, if you've listened to this, we want to invite you to please link arms with us, because the future of the world depends on it. And that sounds all extreme, but there are people saying people are not having enough babies to replace the workforce to make enough food for humans. Like, there's a lot of dire things that are going on because so many people are choosing entertainment over self-sacrifice of training up another generation. And we want to protect life. We want to protect the babies on the chopping block today. We want to obey the king and get our laws in line with the truth of God that is a righteous law. But we can't do it if we've just got this small little faction, throwing a toothpick at the giant. Like, we need a lot of people to get involved in the fight. And so for every man, hopefully there's a wife and then maybe more children joining that fight. So you are invited to get in touch with us and join us. So if you want to shadow us and just be involved in some capacity, you don't have to jump in guns a-blazing. No, not literally either. It's
Cut that out.
You got that. You don't have to jump in, full force if you don't feel ready. We didn't start out feeling really confident, and we still have a lot of times we don't know the answer to everything. But what we do know is that the God that made us gave us life. Our existence is the gift of life in its simplest form, and we should fight so that each human being can have that opportunity, because then if they get the opportunity to be born, they get the opportunity to hear of the Savior and hear the gospel and live a life dedicated to him, right?
Amen.
So come join us. It's a BOD Pod.
That's right. I'm Dan. That's Evan. Peace out.
And these are our wives! Yeah!
We've got a lot to learn. Why do we always run away? The time to fight is now. A silent voice is of no use.